All right. So tonight's live stream show, the concept was introduced to me by my longtime mentee. And I don't want to slight my other mentees. I have about five, six of them, and I love them all dearly. So tonight's show is dedicated to them. They've helped make my life so much better. They've taught me things about myself, and I've had the opportunity to show them things about a little bit of what I learned. So tonight's an incredibly important show to me. So tonight's mentee, his name is Jacques Etienne. He's been a not just a great mentee, but he's been a great friend at the end of the day. Because I think in our relationships, they have to be transactional. I think in some cultures, they can be less than that. However, as African Americans, as people of color, as people who just connect with other people, it should be transactional. It should make an impact in your life, and you should want to make an impact in everybody else's life. So why not? So I've known him, we've been known each other for over 10 years, and I've seen him grow exponentially. He now works as an educator, teaching America's youth in both the high school at the junior high school level. I mean, I couldn't be more proud. So we're gonna bring him on. I want to kind of just so you know, I like this song. I don't know why, but it's not my theme music, and this is not a music show. So when I play it, just know it's kind of like my music to bop to. So yeah, okay, so yeah, sorry. So yeah, I just kind of went off on a tangent. I can do that from time to time. This week it's been a really interesting week. This guy, like, I'm like, who are you? I'm surprised. So John Schnatter today stepped down from completely from Papa John's because of his recent comment during a conference call that he states was a cultural diversity conversation by using the N word, and I guess I could use that, nigga. So his comment was during a call, he stated that, well, Colonel Sanders used the word nigga, and all of this, that wasn't such an issue. Um, yes, sir, that's offensive. That's upsetting. And you, who is the face of Papa John's, which is oftentimes consumed by people of lower income, pizza for dinner, um, they they buy your product and they keep you in business. So, anyways, I'm glad he stepped down. I'm glad that we're learning to live in a place where when people make disparaging comments about other races, about sexual identities, about sexual orientation, about being a woman, that's no longer acceptable. And there are these public outcries for people to be removed. That's the country that I want to live in. That's the country I want to stay in. So, anyways, I'm going to bring on Jacques, and I went on my tangent long enough. Jacques, are you there?
Hi. Yeah, I'm
Hey.
here.
Okay, now talk about what made you come up with this because you brought this to me, and I was like, oh, okay, I never would have thought, but why not?
Because I think it's about time that your audience gets a a warmer Wesley and
Oh,
not saying that you're cold. I'm not saying that you're cold,
okay,
but I wanted to see the Wesley that I know on camera. So I just wanted to bring you out your shell a little bit.
okay, all right.
Yes.
Well, just so you know, not to be catty, um,
Ooh,
I'm not
ooh.
in my shell. I'm not in my shell. I'm a therapist at the end of the day. So the last thing I need is for my patients who do watch this
Oh,
Um,
sorry.
no, 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 no. Who would be like, my therapist is ratchet. He is like, he has poor emotion control himself. So,
But your patients are ratchet too.
oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about my patients being ratchet. So, Jacques, we've known each other for quite some time. And
Yes.
do you want to talk about how we knew each other, how this started? Because I'm African American, for those who don't know. Jacques is Haitian American. He was born, Jacques, you were born here,
Yes, I'm born here.
right? But your family
My,
is incredibly Haitian. Like,
yes, my parents are from Haiti.
mhm,
So I go by Haitian American, but I also, for the culture, I'm definitely black. Like I think
right.
sometimes there can be a divide that Haitians don't see themselves as black. I am very much black, and I
Mm,
love being black.
okay.
But in terms of ancestry and where my people come from,
Hmm.
yes, Haiti.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've known each other for quite some time, and how you want to talk about how we met?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. It was kind of unconventional because you started off as quiet as it's kept. You started off as my therapist, and you
Hmm.
became my mentor, which is not everybody's story and shouldn't be everybody's story. But it was something that needed to happen, and
Hmm.
and I feel like what's incredible about our story is it's crazy how the universe sort of like ordains and makes things happen because I was going through such a tumultuous time in my life, and I needed to I needed to have conversation and talk on a deeper level with a black gay man. I needed
Hmm.
to see somebody like me be okay, and being okay in the world and being successful. And it was great to just you know to
Uh-huh.
talk to you on the therapeutic level, and then after that, when we both decided that it should go from being a therapeutic relationship to a
Hmm.
mentor mentee relationship. That was great too because it really allowed me to just leap and soar because I knew that at the end of the day that I had a positive role model in my life as to what life can be as a black gay man.
Right, right. And yes, it was you came to my practice. At the time I had a practice in the village.
Yes, you
What
did.
made you seek out a black gay male therapist with a practice in the village?
Um, I think for me, I was struggling at that time because I knew about my sexual orientation
Hmm.
on the deeper level, but I did not want my family to know.
Right,
And
which
I
was
remember and I remember
significant
in
for
our
you.
first yes, and I remember in our first session you told me what would happen if your parents found out, and or what would happen if and I just couldn't even fathom or think about it at that point. Couldn't fathom or think about it. And it was the funny thing that happened is by the time we had our next section, they had found out,
Right.
and it was crazy how things happen. And I think if it wasn't for the for Queens College and the the president of student affairs at that time were able to get me housing and your support, I
Hmm.
wouldn't have I wouldn't have made it because unfortunately I love my parents. I don't want them to think that I'm bashing them or anything. But after they had found out about my sexual orientation, they disowned me. All is
Hmm.
well now, but that's what
Right.
happened at the time.
Right, 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 right. So, like you said, you got kicked out. That was traumatic for you at the time. And I honestly, to be on the other side, I don't want to turn this into like us having like a breakdown session. I feel like it made you grow. I feel like it made you grow in ways that you weren't ready for, but you had to get ready. And sometimes those are the most profound moments in our life.
Yes, definitely. I think I needed a push out the nest, and I need it. Like at the end of the day, it pushed me into greatness. Like I think I was so unconfident about certain things, and I didn't. I second guessed everything that I did, and now I think I was finally just living for me.
Hmm. Now, what anything would you share with somebody who is struggling with coming out, being because at the time you were like right out of being a teenager. Um,
I was 22.
you were 22, but you were still living at home. You were still kind of like dependent on your parents. What would you tell somebody who's struggling with the same issues that you were at the time? Because in as much as it's 2018 and we've known each other for quite some time, there's still people in different cultures, in different households who are deathly afraid of coming out, of their parents found out. What would you share to them?
I say you come out when you want to come out, when you feel comfortable to come out. I know for me personally, I didn't come out. I was outed.
Very
So,
true.
right, I was outed. So you come out when you feel comfortable to come out and you feel comfortable to have those conversations. If you're outed, just make sure you have a secure, a tight knit circle that can help you, take care of yourself and find security. But yeah.
Now, were you outed by a boy?
So this is what I think happened because I don't even know what happened for sure. But
Hmm.
basically, one of my good friends at the time, one of my good friends, Robert, he posted on my Facebook wall when people actually wrote on Facebook walls. He wrote, he
Right,
wrote on my Facebook wall that he loved me and he missed me, but he was my good Judy. He was my good friend.
right.
So I don't know what Haitian auntie or I think it was a neighbor, somebody, I don't know who it was. Somebody ran and told that to my parents, and then it kind of blew up.
Right.
So I don't know. My advice to anybody going through that is you come out when you feel comfortable to come out. If you dealing with strict island parents, make sure that you have big hope. Come out when you have everything, all your ducks in a row. I would say.
Hmm.
But if you get outed, some I had to deal with the fact of like sort of like finally embracing myself. So once I was outed, I had to make a choice. I had to make a choice, and I had to say to myself, "Am I going to accept this part of me, or am I going to continue to hide it?"
Mm.
And it takes you a while to finally accept it and sort of lean into your own truth. But I had to finally lean into that. And I said, you know what? This is my truth. This is who
Right.
I'm attracted to. And, I had to change my perspective on that. Like I had to stop believing all the hurtful things sometimes, and I'm not bashing religious people, but some of the hurtful things that religion sometimes says about who we are as same gender loving people. I
Mm.
had to disconnect from that.
Okay. So I don't want to turn into your therapist and this show to be about me interviewing you
The-
because it's so easy for me to talk to people. I'll be honest, when I talk to viewers, when I talk to colleagues, I love their stories, and I'm gonna sit and listen intently, and I'm gonna ask deeper questions because that's just what I do. I've been trained to do it. I think I do it innately. So I'm turning the show over to you. You talk to me.
okay, okay. So, so I want the audience to get a very candid view of Wesley. So I'm gonna ask some spicy questions and I'm gonna ask some serious questions. You ready?
I'm not ready, but I'll be
Okay.
ready.
Okay. The first one is spicy. Okay.
Mm, mm.
So tell us an embarrassing nursing story, Mr. Nurse Doc.
Ooh, an embarrassing nursing story.
Yes.
Um, I have several embarrassing nursing story, and I'll start with one that was really interesting. So I went into work, and I'm not going to say where I was working. And one of my colleagues, who was a Caucasian female, blonde, I won't say her name, um, we had grown incredibly close. She, I was going to be taking her patient. She had took the liberty of introducing me to my patients beforehand. And what she said is she told him, well, he's just like me, except he's black and he's gay.
Oh my
And
God.
I was like, wow, okay. Well, I don't know that I would have said that. One, you're a Caucasian woman with blonde hair. I'm a black man with black hair. Um, and I don't know that we would have had a conversation about my sexuality. So, anyways, I go in, and the guy is like, "Oh my God, I've heard so much about you. I just want to kiss you." And I was like,
Ooh.
hmm,
Okay.
okay, I don't know how to deal with this. Okay, let's just go with it. So that's, I feel like, one of my significant, embarrassing nursing stories.
Yeah, that's what you call nurse appreciation. Wanting to
Wasn't it loaded?
kiss your nurse.
Wasn't it look? And I love her. I'm gonna be honest. She meant no harm in it. She was just being transparent. She's energetic. She's a lot of things, and we have a lot of fun working together. But I don't know that we would have went there that day.
It's
So
okay. We all know that white women need help, okay? 54% of them voted for Trump. You know, they need help. It's okay.
exactly. yes. Yes.
Sorry for any other Trump supporters who watch, but I gotta tell the truth. Okay? Y'all the reason why this nut job is in office. Um, all right, so next question. What is your fondest memory of me?
So it's probably gonna be hard to hear. And my fondest memory of you was when you got mad at me when you were graduating from Queens College and you were trying to discover what were going to be your next steps in terms of where you live, and what that looked like for you. And you were mad at me.
I
And
was.
I think I'll remember that to my dying day because it was hard for me to tell you that I need for you to fly on your own because I don't think you heard that. I think you heard being rejected. And that will always be my fondest memory of you.
Okay.
Don't
That
start
yeah, that
crying
was
here.
I'm not gonna start crying, but that was definitely
Right.
I it took me a while to understand that because what the viewers don't know, I don't want the viewers to think I'm out here mooching. But what the viewers don't know was Wesley had suggested at that time because we had been mentors and mentees for a while, and Wesley had suggested that he had I think he had
At my
a room
house.
in his
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
he had a room
Exactly.
in his house,
Hmm.
and later on Wesley was like, I don't think maybe you should try something else, and I did. I ended up living in South South Side Jamaica, Queens. Um,
I helped you move.
and oh, you did have me. Yes, you did. South Side
Exactly.
Jamaica, Queens. And it was definitely an experience. But all in all, I think that experience of you know moving in with somebody, living with them for 3 months, trying to get out and escape. I think all of that helped me, grow. You know, so
Right.
yeah,
So that's
I'm
my
better
fondest
for it.
memory. I know.
Yeah,
I knew you would come out on this side of that experience.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Go
All right,
ahead, but
next question. If you weren't a nurse, what profession would you be doing?
I think I know what I would do. I would be a pianist. I would also, yes, sir. I'd be a music major.
Wait, you play the piano?
I do. You never knew that. So yes, I play the piano. I went to, when I started undergrad, that was my major. I was a music major. And my aunt said, well, what kind of money are you going to make doing that? And she was, she was making a good point. So, I had to choose something that would be financially, um, financially gainful, unsure of. So yes, that's it.
When's the last time you touched the piano?
Years, but I still play my cello.
Okay. All right.
Keeping secrets.
Okay. Shout out to the musicians. Okay. Okay. Hmm. All right. Now, another spicy question. Here's a spicy question.
Mm.
So we know that that patient tried to kiss you,
No, he didn't
but
try to kiss me. He said, first off, he was married, and his wife and his daughter were there. And
oh,
I think it was just he was just a friendly guy. At that entire shift, he was incredibly a great patient. So no, he didn't try to kiss me.
okay. So has a patient ever hit on you?
Yes, I have had patients hit on me. I think, like any nurse who comes into contact with patients, and it can be an incredibly intimate and personal experience, that patients will hit on us and they will say sometimes very inappropriate things. So, yes, I have had several patients hit on me.
Yeah, I think they get the kind of the nurturing aspect
Right,
mixed up because it's your job to care for them,
right. And be there for
and
them. So,
right. And I think sometimes when people are receiving care, sometimes that can be mistaken
right. And people come
as
into
something else.
healthcare, people come into the hospital when things are sometimes at their worst. And like they can't clean themselves, they can't pee for themselves. And nurses are there. And so, I mean, we hear those things that sometimes they can't tell anybody else about, whether it be things like their status, whether it be things about what they've done sexually that got them in the hospital, whether it be about the relationships with their family that has gotten them sick, all these different things, we're there. And so when you can connect with somebody and there's no judgment, I mean, it makes you feel like, oh, maybe I could have something deeper with you.
That's true, but it's a lie.
But
Okay, it's a lie.
it's a lie.
um. So now the question that I had has to do with the next question I have. It has to do with. Hold on. I came up with some crafted questions.
And I didn't hear these questions, so I'm like, oh shit.
So I said, I often feel like, so this was the question. So basically, as an educator and somebody who's going on to my fifth year teaching, I'm starting my fifth year teaching
Yes, which I'm
in a
so
couple
proud of.
of weeks. What I've noticed, and both my parents are nurses. What I've noticed in terms of nursing versus teaching is that though both careers have to do with, helping and caring for people, I noticed that nurses get a lot more respect than teachers do.
Mm.
Because as a teacher, I have days where I feel severely undervalued. And I know that nurses have those days too, because I did work.
Okay.
I did work at a nursing
Mhm.
station.
Yes.
I did work at a nursing station. I'm not going to say the hospital either. Um, for a year, so I know that nurses feel undervalued. But what nurses don't know is that, quiet as it's kept, nurses get paid way more than teachers do. Okay.
Okay. I won't go tit for tat about
Oh,
why that
oh,
is,
okay.
but okay.
So my whole thing is, and in my master's class at UM, we
Mhm.
had conversations about this, like how do we elevate the profession as teachers to make sure that we show our value. So, and I think that nurses were undervalued in the past, but
Very,
now you guys are running the entire hospital.
very.
Okay.
But I mean, when you think about things like parity, nurses were very much so underpaid. Uh, I mean, 20 years ago. I mean, I know stories. I haven't been a nurse quite that long, but I'm almost there. But nurses had to fight for it. Nurses had to demand parity. Nurses walked out of hospitals. Nurses knocked on congressmen's doors. I can't say that I've seen that from teachers. And while that's a bold move to to say you should walk out of the classroom, especially being an administrator for a charter school here in New York City, I would hate the idea of my teachers leaving kids not getting the education that they need. But when you take things into your own hands as an organization, as a profession, people have to listen. And nurses just did that. And they've gotten the reward of doing that.
Okay. I'm going to push back a little bit and I'm going to say that there have been teachers that, like a whole bunch of teachers who've gone on strike, like teachers in West Virginia have gone on strike. And that's very interesting because, West Virginia is a very red state. But
Very
there have
red.
been strikes. There have been strikes throughout the country.
Hmm.
So I don't know. And I think that's something that's still kind of, we still have to see where it's going to go, the trajectory of it.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know what's going on in terms with American education because I don't feel like I
Well,
don't
I
feel
mean,
like
even though you have that, that's a very interesting commentary, and maybe we should conversation have a conversation about that later. But kids don't vote. That's another thing. Patients vote. So when America as an organization isn't supporting nurses and nurses walking out and patients go to the polls, that makes a big difference versus a 7 year old, 8 year old who doesn't vote. I mean, it it's sad, but in this democracy that we live in, that's the way things work.
you are absolutely, yeah, that's a very interesting way to look at it. And if you look at the way that the relationship has been built with teachers and parents,
Hmm.
in my experience, I feel like parents sometimes inherently do not trust teachers and vice versa. So with that, I think that parents vote against teachers all the time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and
Yeah.
look at the fact that, for the last 15, 16 years, nurses have been voted the most ethical profession in the United States. So, according to the Gallup polls, right? So, the only year that nurses weren't considered the most ethical profession was the year of 9/11, and the firefighters of New York City got it. I think they deserved it. So that speaks volumes in terms of what you were just saying.
Right. Hmm. Wow, that just opened my mind right there. I didn't think about that.
But
Parents, love your teachers, please.
love
Love
on
your
your
teachers.
teachers.
Okay, because we spend time with your kids. We spend more time with your kids sometimes than you do. So please vote in our interest.
Right.
Please vote in our interest. Um. All right.
Mm, I
My
wasn't
next
ready for that.
question.
Okay.
I had to shock
Slap
you in
them.
there. I'm a history teacher, so I have to, throw in history, politics, all of that stuff. That's what I'm passionate about. So I had to throw that in there. All right, now for a spicy question. Who is your celebrity crush?
Mm. So I think my celebrity crush would have to be anybody who's portrayed a nurse. So that would be Jada Pinkett Smith, who's portrayed a nurse. That would be Edie Falco, who's portrayed a nurse. Anybody who is willing to get on television and represent us, especially in a way that really makes us stand out, that's my celebrity crush. Otherwise, I don't fawn over like people who I can't touch.
Okay, that's
Even
real.
though, I was on Good Morning America and um, you know, I won't go any further.
Mm, 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 mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Shout out to the NFL. Well,
Shout out
no,
to the
no,
NFL.
no, don't shout them out because they're racist. Um, okay, so I wanted to say something about Hawthorne. That was such a good show.
It was a good show.
I'm upset that it got canceled because I was really hooked up to that show. So shout out to Jada Pinkett.
Shout out to
Oh,
Jada.
all right. So now,
Ooh.
next question. how has the current political climate affected nursing?
Mm. So it's really interesting. And I think a lot of nurses will say that we've been put in this uncomfortable situation where patients talk about, who's our president, President 45, Donald Trump. He's on the television screen a lot. And I mean, I can't think of a day where a patient didn't have a conversation about what was on the TV and what he wasn't doing. And I think it makes us uncomfortable, but because I think that nurses in a profession, we have to take care of so many different people who come from so many different backgrounds, and then we have to represent our own interests when we go to the poll. I think it's made us very polarized and very scared to be transparent. I feel like before Donald Trump was president, like we had conversations about politics and felt okay about it. But I feel like sometimes a lot of my nursing colleagues are afraid to say, I voted for Donald Trump and that be okay or not being judged. Well, how can you come take care of patients and really truly believe in patients' wholeness and that they're good people when you voted for somebody who the whole entire America thinks is a bad person? So I think it's made us distant from one another as nurses at the nursing station in the hospital, and we spend a significant amount of time with one another. I sometimes spend up to 80 hours in the hospital per week with my colleagues, and I think that we have to be comfortable with one another and comfortable with having conversations about who we actually are. And I think that this current political climate has really changed that.
Whew.
I know. I wasn't ready for it, but it just came out.
I'm gonna give you a little something too. I'm gonna say that when I worked at a hospital and I was, what do they call it
You
when you
were
work behind?
a ward clerk. You were a unit secretary.
Yes, a unit. Yes, unit clerk. Yes. So when I was there, and I was there in 2013, 2014. And that was when everything was happening with Trayvon, Mike Brown.
Hmm.
And I worked at a New York City hospital, and I did not know this, but a lot of nurses are kind of tied up with police officers. So I had a lot of moments where I had to just bite my tongue
When you say
because,
tied up with police officers, what do you mean?
well, I mean, married, engaged,
Yeah, I
dating
mean,
police officers. So I
nurses
had,
work crazy shifts. Nurses work crazy shift hours. We work shifts 7A to 7P or 7P to 7A. Some people work in between that, but for the majority of us that work in the hospital, we work 12-hour shifts. And when you think about people you want to marry or that you connect to, police officers work some very crazy hours, lots of overtime. Nurses work lots of overtime. So that's sometimes why we're so gravitated to one another. But go ahead. What you were saying was making a lot of sense.
so basically with that going on, I had a lot of moments where I had built relationships with these nurses, and some of them were letting their politics slip out at the nurses station,
Mm.
and I had moments where I just really had to bite my tongue. Like, I really like so and so, but what so and so is saying right now is complete trash. So it's interesting because in my mind, when you were saying that, I was like, if I had a nurse that voted for Donald Trump, I would say I would request another nurse. But at the same time, when you are
Hmm.
sick and and somebody's taking care of you, you cannot. It doesn't matter. It does
That
not
which
matter.
is you don't and that's so interesting. We live in a world where where the profession of nursing, we're at an incredible shortage. And just the other night, I was at work because I go in and help out. Um, a patient was like, "I want a different nurse." Well, we're in a nursing shortage. Nurses in ICUs across the country are being tripled with incredibly critical patients. Nurses who work in med surge units are being overwhelmed with 8, 9 patients and giving care. And then you want to ask for a new nurse? Like, it's just that simple. Just for a new nurse. Yeah, no, it doesn't work that way. So I love you. I get it. I get why you would say if a nurse you knew or was taking care of you had different political opinions about somebody you feel so incredibly powerful against that you would ask for another nurse. But when you're sick in that bed and you can't even clean your own butt, or you can't even pee in the urinal, or you don't know if you're gonna die, trust me, that's the last thing you thinking about.
And you know what? I think it's also similar to me as like being a black gay man in the classroom. You know,
Mm,
I've taught in some places that have I taught in Miami and I taught at a school that needed a lot of help and support in Miami.
hmm
And here I come in, walk into the classroom, black gay man, and kids say things. But at the end of the day, you sort of have to realize like you need me.
Right.
Regardless of my identity or how I come show up in the room, you need me. I am valuable.
hmm
So therefore you are going to have to accept me for who I am.
Right. And keep it moving.
Exactly.
Keep it
Exactly.
moving.
Flips hair.
Bats eyes and walks out.
Okay. So now another question. What would you tell your younger self 10 years ago? So you are 45.
Mhm.
You heard what I said? You...
You tried it. You tried it. I didn't want to show out on this camera in front of these people. But my eyes got big, and that's why I looked down because I was like about to say, hey, you know me. You know me for my works, and these people's down. So, anyways, yes. Pretending 10 years from now that I'm 45. Okay, go ahead.
So what would you say to your younger self? What advice would you give your younger self?
Mm. I think the advice that I would give my younger self is continue to work hard because it's going to pay off. Being on the other side of this, like being a registered nurse, a licensed clinical social worker, a psychologist, and I never would imagine that would have a doctorate degree. Never would have imagined. I wasn't all that bright. I mean, some of my classmates who watched this would be like, Wesley wasn't all that bright. He was a class clown. But I would tell myself, live your life, get it, continue to get it. It's coming. Um, and yeah, that's what I tell my younger self because I think I beat myself up so much so when I was very young that I didn't like who I was. I was a very, and I mean you don't know this, but I was a very racist kid, and not racist against people who didn't look like me, but I didn't like people who looked like me.
Ooh.
Um, and so I would have a conversation with my younger self that you're beautiful and that those big lips that people are making fun about you make you beautiful. Move on, keep it moving, and don't sit and try to change who you are and bleach your skin and be different just so somebody can accept you because they're never going to accept you. Get over it.
Yes. And that's a conversation that I keep having with myself even now. Like, because what's interesting is I'm 30, but I still feel like I'm bombarded by images as to what it means to be a man.
hmm
And it's funny. It's like you are in the closet for a big portion of your life. Then you step out of the closet, and then now gay men are telling you that you are not masculine enough. And there's this whole conversation about masculinity within the gay community. And I think that that is something that has been, you know, sort of affecting me a lot in terms of it, in terms of like I'm I'm just starting to get comfortable with being who I am,
hmm
being a butch queen. Like I'm just finally
Right. A
accepting.
BQ. Right.
But I got that from your journey. Like I think sometimes it takes a while for you to accept who you are and how you show up in the room,
hmm
and being proud of that and embracing that.
So, okay. Next.
That was my last question.
Wow. Okay.
That was my last question.
Now, so I know you said, you know, this was, um, in a way, an idea for us to be able to show a different side of me. I'll be honest, Chuck, being your mentor has been so powerful for me. You've taught me a lot. And I just really want you to know that I know you know I'm an incredibly crazy busy person. I spend 100 hours hustling, making things do what they do. But I, in no way have I ever wanted you to feel that you were not a priority. So, yes, thank you.
And I just wanted to say thank you as well for um, being there. Like I think it's like what I'm saying right now. It's just one of those things where sometimes life is going and you keep thinking about. I'm a very ambitious person.
Hmm.
You know, I have my mom has been super ambitious, and it's sort of been passed down to me. And I just want and I want and I want and I want. But I was thinking the other day about a conversation that we had. I don't know if you remember this. Um, this was when we were when I was in therapy. We had this conversation, and I said to you, you asked me what are some things that I want.
Hmm.
You remember where I'm going with this?
No.
And I told you that I wanted to have my own place. I wanted to have a degree,
Hmm.
and I
Right.
wanted to have a dog.
Exactly. The three Ds, as you
Yes,
put it.
yes. And the crazy thing is, now I don't want a dog. I realized that I wasn't a dog person.
Hmm.
But everything else that I wanted, I manifested.
Right.
And I just want to say that is an ode to therapy. That is an ode to doing working on yourself. I manifested it, and I made sure that I put the degrees in the shot right here. Okay, that's my
I,
Queen's College degree. Okay, but I'm
yes.
trying to get the other way. And there's the UM one right there. Okay, I got two
Right.
degrees.
Right. And
Okay,
you'll be getting
two.
that PhD very soon.
Yes.
Right.
So um, it's just this has been an incredible journey, and it's been great to just have somebody to just who can be a friend, but then still open doors for you along the way. Um, and I was thinking about have you been watching the show Pose?
I haven't watched the show Pose. I apologize.
So you're the okay. Well, thank God it's renewed for season two. If it got canceled, I would have blamed you.
Babe been watching Pose, so
Okay. All right.
right.
So you need to go watch Pose because it talks about the ballroom scene, and it talks about the fact of chosen family
Hmm.
and how sometimes in times of crisis you have to choose family. And I feel incredibly blessed to have chosen you as a member of my family. You
Right.
know, when things are important and happening in my life, I make sure that I let you know. So like that's something that's incredible to have somebody in your family who accepts you completely for who you are.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jacques. So yeah, we're a little bit over. This was an emotional experience for me because I wasn't ready for it. So I know this is over the 30 minutes. Thank you guys for watching. Jacques, is there anything else you want to add?
Follow me on my social media.
Right.
And I also want to say, make sure we boycott all these white supremacist corporate companies. Don't eat Papa John's. Don't eat Waffle House, Chick-fil-A. Stay away from all of it. If you go on that type of diet, you'll lose all the weight. Okay? Don't eat from these white supremacist companies.
Oh my God, that's my son. You are one of the most woke people that I know. You are not afraid to speak out. I love that about you, and I've always loved about that about you. So, all right, have a good night.
All right. Take care.
Okay, yes. So that was my mentee Jacques. Again, it's so important in life to give back. You never really know how you'll touch other people's lives and what an impact and difference it will make. As people of color, as anybody, I mean, in this world, I don't care what shade you are, the taking time out of your life to give something to somebody else's life is incredibly, incredibly profound, useful, the most necessary things for us getting in touch with humanity, especially in the world that we live in right now. Next week, I have two incredibly interesting individuals coming on. They're going to be talking about genetics. So, one thing I think we don't do is we don't think about the future in the way of kind of like, what does my 23 chromosomes that I put with another person's 23 chromosomes, what is that going to look like? What is that baby going to look like? Where does Babe, where does he come from? And do I really know that when we get together, that's going to be manifested? Also, not just that, but when I have things like cancer, when I take medications, our genes make an impact on what we should be doing, how we should be exercising, and how we should be living our lives, choosing our partners, and when we have sex. So I'm excited to have him on. Like I said, I love this song. This is not really my theme song, but I just love it. Anyways, I will see you all next week.